Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. These were cards I started last week for last week's Color Throwdown Challenge, and then got hit with that horrible chest cold that derailed everything. So, it took me quite a bit longer than usual to get the cards made and then edit the video, etc. But I'm sharing it anyway, even though the Color Throwdown Challenge is over. But still, you can use the inspiration, use old color challenges anyway. Why not? That's the whole point. So, I'm using the Lawn Fawn Oh Gnome stamp set that I'd got, goodness, months ago. And, you know, just have in my collection, because that's what I do with Lawn Fawn, really. I just collect Lawn Fawn and use it on occasion. So I put all the little images from the set into my mini MISTI, and I'm stamping them onto Neenah Classic Crest 80-pound solar white cardstock. And I am inking up all of the images with ink on 3s in blackout ink, Copic friendly ink, Copic friendly cardstock, because of course I'm going to color these in Copics. So because the stamps are brand new, I stamped them a couple times to get a good crisp image. And since I had everything, you know, laid out in the MISTI, I ended up stamping a second panel, because why not? And also because with Lawn Fawn images, like, they're so small that you can just do multiples in, you know, not a whole lot of time. So the coloring is very, very simple. I did my, like, standard go-to, though, with, like, starting with the skin and then doing the hair, etc. And the skin, though, I only used 2 colors, just the E13 and E21, because, like, such small little areas. I don't feel the need to go into, you know, multiple colors to do a lot of blending, etc. And then I added a little bit of R20, just the light little dabs for their little cheeks. All of their hair, I did the same color, again, just to keep things simple. So I just did brown, so E27 and E25 are kind of my go-tos for a brown combo. And just add, again, little dabs here and there, small areas, quick, simple, to the point. So did everything with the hair with brown, and then since I was going with the color combo last week, the like main color was red, so which kind of kept things easy. So I did, like, all our outfits are red, the tops, the mushrooms, etc. So this is also one of my, like, all-time favorite go-to combos is R29, R27, and R24. And as I do almost all the time with Copic coloring, I just work darkest to lightest. You do have less control. I think I say this every time. You do have less control with, like, the amount of color you're adding and shadows and whatnot, like the shading. So if you're, like, newer to Copic coloring or not as comfortable with it, like, the basic, like, the way it's normally done, like going lightest to darkest, it definitely gives you way more control. And you can, you know, it's easier to add color than it is, like, it's pretty hard to take color away. So I just do this because it's faster and easier, and I don't want to think about it too much. But at the same time, there's times where I see people's coloring, you know, like Kelly Lativola, there's so many of them that do, you know, amazing Copic coloring. Like, you just sit there and it's like, wow. And ones like her do the lightest to darkest and so much more control and so much more depth. I could go on about that every day. Anyway, if you don't watch her videos, highly recommend them. She tells some pretty interesting random stories with her videos too, which I get a kick out of. So, anywho, I did the wheelbarrow, and I didn't even realize until I die cut them, that bottom part is just, it's just a line. You don't need to color that in. But I did, so whatever works. And then I used some light brown colors for the little bases of the mushrooms and for the little apron and the flower centers. Again, just keeping it pretty simple, but that was also part of, like, the color challenge. It was kind of like a craft color, so that's kind of where I was getting these colors from. And then I used the lightest one, the E41, which is very, very pale. I used that along with the Zero, the colorless blender, to dot the little circles on the mushroom tops, because this also helps push back, because red is a color that likes to take over everything. Whether it be red Copics or red, you know, watercolor, or just red anything. Red likes to take over. Doesn't matter what you do. It does. And I like using something like the lightest colors there to kind of push that color back out on any areas that I wanted to remain white, like the dots on the mushrooms. So I kind of pushed it out with that. And then I finished off my coloring with some greens for the little flowers and stems and whatnot. And then I added a quick little bit of yellow to each of these little lanterns just to, you know, finish them off and give them a little bit of color. So once I had all my Copic coloring complete, I pulled out my favorite white gel pen, which is this Jelly Roll 10. This is the like largest nib gel pen of the bunch, because there's a 5 and I think there's a 3, which is really fun tipped. I don't use the 5 and 3 hardly ever. I always use the 10 when I add little, you know, dots and highlights and whatnot to my images. And I'll have this linked. Yeah, I always link to this when I use my Copics and whatnot. But I just go along and add just little dots, little highlights here and there. Just it gives it that little extra something, you know, that finishes everything off. And then once I'm done adding all of that, I'm going to tape all of the coordinating dies into place and run these through my die cut machine so that they are all die cut. And I just like taping them into place with washi tape so that these don't move when I run them through the machine, because more often than not I do things like that. So I like to tape everything down really well with just little bits of washi tape so that these dies don't move, everything gets die cut, and we're good to go. So I did all my die cutting, set the characters aside, and then I did a whole bunch more die cutting using the Mushroom House Lawn Cuts die set, because of course it coordinates, and I'd got this along with the border one, which I'll get to in a minute. So I die cut the pieces for the Mushroom House from some ivory cardstock, from some green cardstock, from some red cardstock, and then I did just some really simple and quick ink blending on them. I used Lawn Fawn's Pizza Crust ink for the base of my little mushroom house here. So it was a very close kind of color match to the ones I'd colored with Copic markers. And I also used that ink on the door just to give it that little extra something. And this will, like on camera, it looks darker. Like when the ink first goes on with any ink blending, a lot of times it'll look darker, but then it like lightens up as it, you know, soaks into the cardstock. So I added a little bit of green, which was artichoke ink, to the little grass pieces that I had die cut. And then for the tops of the mushroom houses, I had die cut from Lawn Fawn's chili pepper cardstock, and then I used the chili pepper ink, which again, it looks darker on camera, but it just kind of fades into the cardstock, and it's very subtle. But I like when I'm doing like solid die cut pieces like this, it gives it that little extra something. So between colors and after I was done, I cleaned off my blending brush, just rubbing it on my microfiber cloth until no more ink comes out, and then it's good to go. And then I'm going to adhere all my little pieces to create my little mushroom house. So there's several dies in this set. Like there's so many more little pieces. There's little flower pieces and whatnot. Like you can really go to town like customizing this if you want. But I kept them fairly simple and just used most of the little basic pieces. And the door even opens, which I just think is adorable. So I only applied adhesive around the very edge of this so the door can open. And then adhere all little bits. I'm just using Lawn Fawn's Connect glue here. And then once I got all of my little pieces adhered into place, I also had die cut there's a little lamp, you know, hanging lamp die cut. So there's a piece even for the back of that you can die cut from another piece of cardstock, which I used yellow cardstock for. Like that's the one thing I love about Lawn Fawn's little scene dies like this, or little like house building, etc. is they're like everything's all thought out and just done. All you gotta do is die cut and adhere. So I adhered and created my little mushroom house. And I ended up actually doing this 3 times because I had, you know, double the images, and so I just went and did everything in multiples. And then same thing with the mushroom border. Again, all thought out. You die cut the border piece from white or whatever light color that you want the stems to be. And then there's 2 separate dies for the tops, and you just have to run those through twice. So then you have all the tops you need for all these little mushrooms. So of course I cut these from red cardstock and then just adhered them in place. And then there's the die for the grass, and then that just layers on top. And then you've got this adorable little, you know, scene created. So I adhered everything in place, and I had cut the green cardstock larger. So I just trimmed off the excess with my paper trimmer. And all of this I did twice because I'm going to do 2 cards with all of the pieces and, you know, gnomes and everything that I colored in the beginning. And then for my actual scene, I actually just took 2 of the lighter blue colors from the Lawn Fawn Really Rainbow Scallops 6x6 pack. And then for the sentiments, I'm using sentiments from the Gnome set. And I just lined up the one sentiment on my media mat here, and I'd used the fancy folded banners dies, and I die cut them from black cardstock. So I put the sentiment on just a very slight little bit of an angle so that it would stamp, you know, and fit on this banner properly. And then I white heat embossed that onto 2 of the banners, and then I white heat embossed another sentiment on a smaller banner from the same die set. So these also score as well as die cut, so I just had to fold along the score lines, and I've got this cute little banner going on. So once I had that, I also die cut some white cardstock using the simple puffy cloud frames wafer dies, and I'm using just the frames. So the inner portions I just put back in the packaging with the dies, so the next time I go to use it, if I want the just the solid images, I can use those on the next, you know, cards I decide to use those wafer dies with. But I adhered just the outlines to the pattern paper, and then once the adhesive was dry, I just flipped this over and trimmed off the excess with my scissors. And now I can start like assembling my little scene here, which is always my favorite part because, you know, everything's just coming together. So I adhered my little mushroom border scene to the sky background, and then I'm going to adhere my little mushroom house into place. And then with the banner die, I ended up deciding to add just a little narrow strip of Simon Says Stamp's Big Mama foam tape, just to help it adhere a little bit better, because it just kind of pops it up so the ends of the banner can kind of fold under properly. So I adhered that into place, and then I adhered my little, you know, gnomes and created my little scene and little speech bubble. Like, it's just, this is why I just collect Lawn Fawn, because it's so cute and I love it. So I adhere all this, and then I did all this, I did in double. Like, I did 2 whole backgrounds with the mushroom house, everything, because why not when you've got it all out and everything's stamped and colored, etc. So I did all that, and after I got, you know, my little scene decided on, I had multiple little images and whatnot left over, which I decided to create a second little scene on the inside of my cards. So my card bases are Simon's 120-pound cardstock. They're 5.5 by 4.25, like A2 size cards. And I've got one of the mushrooms and the little sitting gnome and a few of the little other, you know, embellishments that I had stamped and colored. And then I'm just going to stamp another sentiment on the inside of the card with that blackout ink. And then I can adhere my little extra pieces here on the inside of the card just to, you know, finish it all off. So I've got my little gnome sitting on this little wider mushroom and another one of the little speech bubbles. And then once I've got that all adhered, I can adhere the card front to the card base, and that's going to finish off the standard cards that I had done. And then just as a little extra, because I thought it would be really cute, I had, you know, adhered a third little mushroom house and decided to actually make that into its own little card. So I just die cut another piece of the ivory cardstock with the like outline, like full-size mushroom little die there. And then I only scored about 1/4 of an inch from the top. And then I'm just going to stamp another sentiment from the Oh Gnome stamp set that says, "I have so mushroom in my heart for you." Another reason why I love Lawn Fawn. The punny sentiments just get me. So I stamped that on the inside, and then I applied adhesive just to the very top above the score line and adhered that to the back of my little die cut mushroom house. So now I have a little mushroom house shaped card. Like, it's just cute. This would be really cute. You could punch a little hole in it and, you know, attach it to a gift bag or something. It's just cute. Or you can stick it like in an A2 sized envelope as is. I just think it's adorable. So I had used the second sentiment that I had stamped and heat embossed on one of the little fancy folded banners, and same thing, just adhered that to the front of the card with a little bit of foam tape and the adhesive. And now I've got a little mushroom shaped card, little mini card, and then my 2 full cards with the whole scene going on. So that's it for my video for today. As always, I'll have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list with links to all the supplies I used. I'll link to the color challenge just for those that would like to check it out, because I usually get asked about it. So you can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting. I really appreciate it. I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.